Welcome to NFL Daily, where we never doubted Jake Browning or Dan Campbell or any of the people that got off the mat in week 2 and helped their team to a much-needed victory. I am Gregg Rosenthal here in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio with my friends Patrick Claybon and Jourdan Rodrigue. Nick Shook will be joining us with some bangers later in the show, but for now, it's the three of us. Let's go.
Woohoo!
United!
Jourdan's first full day here in the NFL Network facilities. You did a show this morning. You were next to me all day.
Yeah, let me tell you guys what that was like off air.
Okay.
Oh,
It was fine. What was it?
Sitting next to Greg
I'm just saying,
all day.
You're just like part of the machine now. And
At one point, Greg came over to my little cubby area, and it's a standing desk that you can automate.
Yeah.
And he just decided, you know what? I'm going to raise Jourdan's desk while she's sitting down.
Well, I just wanted to see if it worked.
Into a standing desk.
Just
Yeah.
like 1 inch. I mentioned Jake Browning. I think that's weirdly where we have to start because of the news and because of the quality of play. Like Nick Wesseling on Sunday, let's go to Cincinnati.
Jake Browning will be under center. Chase Brown lines up behind. Now Sample goes behind the quarterback and shoves him. It's a touchdown! Jake Browning with 18 seconds left in regulation has given the Bengals their first lead all day.
Dirty Dancing style.
That
Lifted
was
him up.
Dan Horde and Dave Lapham in the back room. WCKY. Yes, Jake Browning has to come in, unfortunately, for an injured Joe Burrow early in that game. And yeah, he threw some picks. He also led the Bengals on a game-winning drive, 31-27 over the Jaguars to get to 2-0. Patrick, they talked all offseason about avoiding a bad start. And in both of these games, at points, it felt like, man, they're having a bad start. And the Joe Burrow injury is an issue. We'll get to that. But they are 2-0.
yeah. The conversation about wins being a quarterback stat is hilarious. Wins are a coaching stat. And Zach Taylor had never started 2-0 his entire Bengals tenure. And by the grace of the universe itself, somehow this team is 2-0 because you wondered what would be the tendency breaker. Liam Cohen's Jags, are they going to get past this Jags attitude of the past where a litany of errors causes them to lose a game that they should have won? No, not today. They start things off with a 9-play, 69-yard drive. Again, they're using Diami Brown early on. Brian Thomas Jr., they both had 18-yard receptions. And then the defense comes out. They sack Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's 0 of 1. They get the ball back. They go on an 8-play, 64-yard drive. And then Trevor Lawrence throws an inexplicable end zone interception, and then Burrow comes back. They ultimately get a drive and a touchdown. The injury, which NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport says is turf toe, which is something for us to watch because they have the Broncos, the Vikings, the Packers, and the Lions in their next 4 games. So
Wow.
good for them for starting 2-0. Bashal Tutin looked good, but there were weird
Tootin' Nation.
miscommunications. The broadcast said Brian Thomas Jr. short-armed a ball across the middle that was ultimately an interception for Trevor Lawrence, which was another turnover the Jags could have taken advantage on. It was a rough one.
Let's listen to Liam Cohen asked about Brian Thomas Jr. 12 targets in this game for 49 yards. One of the most inefficient plays in football through 2 weeks have been passes to Brian Thomas Jr. He was asked, Cohen, whether Thomas was short-arming that pass.
Yeah, I gotta go watch it, and just go figure out what that, was all about and what it looked like. Yeah, I gotta go take a look at that.
We've talked, Jourdan, about Liam Cohen maybe giving too much away in press conference, and that I actually think was a good enough job by him trying to just stop himself from saying something that's gonna look bad.
He chewed on his lip. He chewed on his own inside of his own lip. You could see it in the audio.
He wears his emotions on his sleeve. When you saw him shaking the hands of Zach Taylor after the game, he had such a look of like disappointment and like, I can't believe I have to do this right now. These are two guys that once work together. And then there was another sequence where, if you're watching us on YouTube, where he has this exchange with Trevor Lawrence, where he's kind of like making these wild gestures from the sideline, and Trevor Lawrence kind of waves him off and turns his back. And these things happen. This was after a missed throw when they're up 3rd and 14 with about 3 minutes to go. And just like a lot of tension and a lot of mistakes, Patrick. I guess we will get to the Bengals side of it, but it did feel like it was a game where the Jacksonville Jaguars like wasted a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, and we can celebrate Jake Browning kind of what feels like being shoved in the end zone against his will at the end, like he was not ready for that sample push
A lift.
in the back. But there were turnovers by Jake Browning. Wingard got one, almost took it all the way back to the house, put the Jags in solid position. They did nothing with it. And the worst one, there was a Lloyd interception of Jake Browning inside of 4 minutes to go in the ball game that should have been backbreaking. They get to 4th and 5 inside the 10-yard line. They run a crosser to Brian Thomas Jr. instead of kicking the field goal, which may have changed circumstances. I don't know. And who knows if he would have gotten it if he had caught the ball, but he had a pretty nasty drop. It was maximum Jags, including the final drive for Jake Browning. There was a defensive pass interference call on Travis Hunter. I don't think it was defensive pass interference. I've lobbied for years that this should be reviewable. The NFL allegedly tried. It was a false flag. They never intended to make pass interference reviewable. And Travis Hunter gets dinged on what was one of the plays that cost him the game.
Yeah, it's tough. It's, I think back to earlier in this same week that we're still currently in, and Zach Taylor, was talking about, really wanting to be 2-0 and seemed really excited about it and eager about it in his press conference comments. And I'm like, okay, man, but at what cost, right? Because that is a tough injury. Jake Browning is a solid backup quarterback. A couple of the local writers there were talking back and forth with some of the fans, responding on social media to different comments about, okay, well, why does it look like, there are functional plays happening for this quarterback? Why does it look so hard for Joe Burrow sometimes? And it's like, well, you got to call around the player that you have. And that's part of what the issue moving forward will be. We don't know how long Joe Burrow is going to be out, but it's kind of like, okay, yeah, you got your 2-0. At what cost? And, you're going to have to change your entire game plan around this guy now.
I think it's important, though, because this part of the season to me is just about managing like your win-losses, managing the schedule. The stuff that really matters for Cincinnati is coming up. It's obviously devastating. You lose Joe Burrow, and you're going to be just trying to get a win or two in these Jake Browning starts, however many there are. Turf toe is such an unpredictable injury.
Yeah.
I asked our friend Nick Westling, who was at the game, like if he had any takeaways, and he was like, don't do the thing where you give the Bengals too much credit. The biggest, the factor in this game, like drop passes were the difference, and they were getting beat and outplayed when Joe Burrow was in the game. And yeah, the sequence of these drops was brutal. In the fourth quarter alone, De'Ami Brown drops a touchdown. Brian Thomas Jr. kills a drive with a 4th down drop. And then my guy, Travis Hunter, who's definitely having a tough start to the season, draws or is called for a long pass interference on a 4th down on the game-winning drive for the Bengals. I think it was a good call. It wasn't absolutely clear, but it wasn't a call. With pass interference, I always feel like unless it's really obvious that it was a terrible call, I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. And they called him for pass interference. And yeah, just a lot of jagging going on. Let's actually listen to Liam Cohen, also asked about that 4th down decision.
Why the decision to go for it?
It's 100% a go. It's 100% a go. In all analytics and all data, it's 100% a go.
I don't like the way he answered it, but it seems like the reason that you went for it is because if you go up 6, like you still have to make them kick a field goal basically either way.
Yeah.
And if you go up 6, they're more likely to go for the touchdown. And Jason Garrett's on NBC saying like he thought it was a really bad decision because you got to force the backup quarterback to go score a touchdown. Well, what did they do? They went and scored a touchdown. That to me actually is why you go for it. You have multiple chances to win the game. You trust your franchise quarterback, and then you trust your defense, and they couldn't stop him. They gave up a touchdown. You disagree, Patrick?
Yeah, it's 100% a kick to me on 4th and 5. 4th and 2, I understand, but it was 5 yards to the extent that Brian Thomas Jr. never even got across the line of gain in the first place to catch the ball in that situation where the Bengals were sitting there and waiting. But there were so many plays other than that one. It was a collection of failures that led to this Jags loss, and we'll see if they can kind of summon some positives out of the pass rush. Look great, and I do think there may be something to this Browning T. Higgins situation. I don't know if we'll call them fluffy passes that Jake Browning throws kind of suit T's eye a little bit more, but he goes up and mosses 2 defenders and then runs them over for a long touchdown, or maybe in fantasy world, the T. Higgins shares.
I think he is the best contested catch, like go pluck the ball in the air away from your body guy in the entire NFL. So maybe like a soft tossing, and Joe Burrow's not that different. He's obviously a much better version of it. A soft tossing guy helps him out.
I just want to say for the record that I also think that it's a go, especially from that distance from the end zone, and you're averaging 5.7 yards per play, a little more than that even at the time. But I will say, we talked about this earlier, and I think this is actually really important to monitor over the course of the season. We've all mentioned it at different times. The subtext of the comments post-game, the subtext of the actions, it looked like actually when him and Trevor Lawrence were going back and forth, that is a put it on his chest. You saw the ball got tipped up a little bit. The receiver tipped it up a little bit with the contested coverage as well. To me, that looked like him saying, put it right on his chest. And then, what are you going to do in that situation? The play's already done. You're the quarterback. You got to turn around and keep going.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing. You can hear the thinly veiled rage, and I think more so execution than any of his own decisions right now.
It's always been Trevor's problem, and he had a couple of interceptions in this game. He also had, 3 touchdowns, 271 yards. He's always not been the most accurate.
It's like yelling at the guy, make your free throw. Like, obviously, Trevor Lawrence is trying to throw it directly to the receiver.
So the Bengals get out of there with the victory, and Jamar Chase, in Nick Wesseling's words, the best non-quarterback in the NFL. After a quiet week 1, 14 catches on 16 targets for 165 yards and a touchdown. Shamar Stewart also got banged up late in this game. That is something to watch. But seeing Chase and Higgins do their thing, I think it's going to be really important long-term that they banked those wins. Another team banking those wins was an Arrowhead today, but it's not the home team.
Now there's motion to the near side of the field on Hunt. Back goes Mahomes. He fires. It's intercepted on a deflection. There's the turnover. Intercepted by Makuba. Down the far sideline he goes, all the way across the 40. There is the interception that could change this game dramatically. What a big play.
That was Merrill Reese and Mike Quick on WIP. It did change the game dramatically. It's pretty rare that we go with a fourth quarter interception in a 13-10 game that doesn't directly even result in a score. But that was the kind of game that the Eagles and the Chiefs played. It wasn't the most entertaining, but it did have a lot of really dramatic moments, I believed. A lot of coaching decisions. 20-17, the Eagles beat the Chiefs. And yes, Travis Kelce, who made some great plays today, many of which were right on Andrew Makuba, that changed the game. A fourth down pickup, another one where he stiff arms Cooper DeJean, ultimately drops a pass that could have been a touchdown, turns into an interception. And I pointed out and make it the highlight partly because the Chiefs have such a small margin for error right now. They are not an explosive team. They did hit one to Thornton late in the game after they were down 20-10 to make it interesting. But when they go on a really long drive, they have to capitalize. And what we saw today, Jourdan, I think in that moment was the very picture of the Vic Fangio defense of make them work down as the field as slowly as possible, and eventually they'll make a mistake. And the Chiefs did make those sort of mistakes today.
And I will tell you, coaches who play against this, especially the original of this, which is Vic Fangio running it, obviously, they describe it as agonizing, as an ego death. And I don't think we worry about that so much with Andy Reid, the master of the screen game. He's so happy usually to pick and poke against an opponent, but the Eagles are really good against the screen game too. This was death by 1,000 paper cuts. And that is exactly, I always would get confused when players who play in this type of system say, we want to make them snap it one more time. I'm like, why? Just get off the field. But really what it is you want that psychological battle in the mind of the opposing offense, and you want one more snap to force that mistake. That is what happened here today.
I think the blitz really tells a lot about this game. I mean, the Chiefs lost the game at home, down by a couple scores in the fourth quarter, where they held the Eagles to 216 yards. Neither of these teams topped 300 yards.
5 for 14 on third down for the Eagles, 4 for 12 on third down for the Chiefs, but holding the Eagles to that on third down.
And it is incredible, although they did pick up a couple of the fourth downs with the tush push. Like, where's the NFL that I loved with the big plays with A.J. Brown and Patrick Mahomes? Like, A.J. Brown goes 5 for 27, and for the most part, Saquon Barkley was bottled up. And what I found really interesting was the battle of the blitzes. So famously, Vic Fangio doesn't send a single blitz in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
This time, he sent a lot. And Patrick Mahomes ends up going 3 for 10 with that interception, which really wasn't on him, but 3 for 10 with very little yardage against the blitz. And I think it was because ultimately, like, they weren't worried about the Chiefs beating them over the top. On the other side, the Chiefs have so little pass rush that they blitz almost the entire game. And I feel like every single Spags versus Hurts game or Todd Bowles versus Hurts game comes down to Jalen Hurts versus the blitz. And today I would give him like a C on that. He goes 9 for 14 for 77 yards. He didn't make a ton of mistakes. He took a sack, but on a per play basis, that is not very good. Their total yardage was not very good, but they end up making no mistakes. Ultimately, didn't make them pay enough. And so the Chiefs have to blitz 64% of the time, and the Eagles still get out of there without like really making the back-breaking mistake.
Yeah, and over on the other side, it put Spags' defense in a very tough position because you get in that situation. Yeah, they got away with it one time. The double mug look, they sent 2 in the gap. Saquon has to choose. He doesn't block either one of them. And Hurts throws it up to Devonta, and he tries to make a catch, lands like awkwardly.
Yeah,
he's down for a few minutes.
Yeah,
but he's back in the game. Later on, same exact situation, except Devonta Smith makes the catch, and you see like just the limits to how aggressive they could be, but there was only so much that they could do, not holding Saquon under 60 yards this time. Like, Saquon had a decent game, and just like with the limitations that they are offensively, like there was just so much put on them to be successful on defense where this isn't sustainable.
Yeah.
Like, you can't.
Well, it's sustainable if they want to keep losing.
Yeah.
They're 0-2.
Well, it's really striking on both sides of the ball for the Chiefs. On the offensive side, they do feel strained. They do feel like not super cohesive, and part of it is missing personnel, having Xavier Worthy. They clearly were. That was a total shock. I mean, obviously it was a bang play too. Some home team contact there by Travis Kelce, and so obviously you're not expecting that. So now your entire plan changes throughout. But on the defensive side, it is absolutely wild to me. This is actually the most Steve Spagnuolo has had to blitz in a game since he first took this job as defensive coordinator back in 2019. And the discrepancy of it was Jalen Hurts on 40% of his passes per next gen had over 2.5 seconds to throw. When he was actually purely dropping back, and A, they were trying to rush for, or B, their blitz was not getting to him, he had all day to sit back there and figure out what he wanted to do with the ball. And he didn't even have to show the run threat like he normally would. Yes, he scored a rushing touchdown, but in terms of those pure dropbacks, he looked so unbothered by so much of what they did. And then you have to dial up the blitz to a point where you're stretching yourself actually pretty thin because your 4-man rush can't get home. You're stretching yourself schematically as the coordinator past a point where it's not sustainable for you to play.
And yet it was extremely effective. Like, if they won this game because the offense played better, we'd be talking about what a great game plan it was. Ultimately, Hurts averages under 5 yards per attempt, but it's a great point on the pressure because they sent blitz 64% of the time. He was only pressured 36% of the time. Like, that's a terrible ratio for them to have, and it's just something to keep an eye on. 2 straight weeks, Chris Jones not really making an impact as a pass rusher. He's had moments where he starts the season slow before, and so because it's Chris Jones, you kind of assume that he will get it going eventually. It's the rest of the team that both last week and this week just does not have enough juice up front. Ultimately, though, their defense played well enough. It's just tough if Travis Kelce is easily your most important offensive piece at his age, and Tyquan Thornton is playing such a big role, and you just haven't had any running game from Pacheco or Kareem Hunt over the last couple of weeks in very tough matchups against Jesse Minter's group, against Vic Fangio's group, it will get easier, but not that much easier. You know, you play the Ravens in a couple weeks after the Giants. Next week, they are feeling it, and I think they're doing things out of character. They went for a 4th and 1 on their own 36-yard line to start the third quarter. Andy Reid, that's not something he would normally do. And I just felt like they're just like a little desperate, and he doesn't get it either. You know, they get stuffed, and that was a tie game at that point. I didn't hate that he went for it. I think he's kind of right to treat his team as the one that's less talented and being a little desperate against the Eagles, because it's true.
It's going to be a long season for Patrick Mahomes to far and away be the leading rusher and like continuing his trend of running people over, where it's like it's a lot of contact. And then, you mentioned Chris Jones and Travis Kelce, both of those guys being Canton in my opinion. But at this point, perhaps more complementary pieces than instead of like relying on them to do what they've always done when they've been playing so much football, like making all these playoff runs. It's a lot of accumulation of football, which is something that no doctor would ever prescribe.
Ultimately, 1-score losses to two teams that I think are going to be in the playoffs that are really well coached, two good quarterbacks. And so I am not, panicking yet about this Kansas City
they'll be fine
Chiefs
against
team.
the Ravens. I can see that.
But your rushing point on
he's already bracing himself.
Your rushing point on Mahomes is well said. He had a career high in rushing yards in the second quarter already of this game. The fact that he's had to run so much in both of these games is not a good sign. Let's go to Detroit. So this is kind of the revenge portion of the program. The Chiefs did not get their revenge. Could the Lions get their revenge on Ben Johnson for flying the coop? Turncoat.
21 seconds to go. First down for the Lions. Goff's got it back. Lofts it right side. Wants Tesla. Does he make a one-handed catch? Oh, don't you tell me he did that. Oh, rookie, you are something else as he slides out of bounds at the 3-yard line. Here we go. 6 seconds remaining. Lions come to the line. The clock is not moving. It'll start on the snap. They'll get one shot at the end zone before they send the field goal unit out. Goff works out of the gun. There's the snap. Jared back. Jared looking, throws, end zone. Caught! Touchdown, Detroit Lions! Amon-Ra St. Brown, I see you! Oh, that is so big! The rookie makes the catch. That sets up the Lions for the touchdown, and it's the veteran Amon-Ra who makes the grab for the score.
Oh, that is a great call from Dan Miller on WXYT. Usually, we go for one-play highlights. But when we got our guy Isaac Tesla making the greatest catch in NFL history, if it had happened in the 70s or 80s, to set up a touchdown with 4 seconds left in the half, we're going two-play highlight. 52-21. Man, Dan Campbell was enjoying the hell out of this win late. A 50-burger on the Bears, Jourdan, in a game that early it looked like was going to be a lot of fun, and late it just felt like a lot of Bears games over the last 5 years.
Someone's going to fact check me this if I'm wrong, but I believe that's Isaac Tesla's second career NFL catch ever. And remember, the first one was also insane, but in a loss, so we don't really talk about it so much. So
we've talked about it like 4 times. Yeah. It was only last week, Jourdan.
All he does is trick shots. He's trick shots only.
He's literally
Tesla.
2 for 2.
Yes,
That's it.
Yes. And so this was super interesting because they only needed 4 seconds to get that Amon-Ra St. Brown touchdown to put the game up 28-14 at half, and kind of broke Chicago's back in this sequence. At first, there was a little confusion because the officials let the clock run out, which was super confusing for Jared Goff. First of all, because the referee was still in the middle of the scrum placing the ball as the clock ran out. The clock official and the sideline official were not on the same page. Finally, they got all of that fixed. Then there was the catch was ruled in bounds, which means they needed a 10-second runoff. Anyway, I won't bore you with all the details. They only needed 6 seconds, 4 of the 6 seconds, to ultimately really put this game away in terms of the Chicago Bears. The Bears, it didn't always have to be this way. It didn't start this way. Once again, the Bears looked really solid on their opening script. Touchdown, Caleb Williams. Next 4 possessions were a punt, a fumble. Brian Branch hit DeAndre Swift so hard that his mouth guard popped out. It was then a turnover on downs, then an interception. This was not a great decision, a pretty bad interception that sort of just started to spiral everything a little bit out of control for the Bears. It all sort of convalesced into one thing. He was on the move. He's working out a structure, avoiding pressure from the Lions front. And then he tried to make something happen down the field. The receiver he wanted had run out of bounds, kind of halfway stayed out of bounds, kind of came in bounds a little bit. He ended up throwing. Gregg and I talked for a little bit after this game about whether maybe he was trying to throw it out of bounds or was trying to hit the receiver down the field. It looked too in bounds of a throw for me to think that he was trying to throw it out of bounds. Ends up being an interception. Kirby Joseph picked it off, and then it just got from bad to worse. And by the way, against the coach who used to really enjoy running up the score on opponents in that stadium.
And Ben Johnson was asked about that after the game.
Hey, Ben, do you believe Dan Campbell ran it up on you on that 4th and 4 goal?
What's he supposed to do? Is 4th and goal, what do you want him to do? Yeah, he could have kicked the field goal. They don't kick field goals. They go for it there. So he was doing what he was supposed to do. That's what he does.
Good answer. Let's not make it more than
honest.
The idea is to score as many points as you could have. Ben Johnson was upset about a lot of things in this game.
I think he could have been upset about Rome Odunze dropping multiple passes, including on one drive. I think he could have been really upset about his offensive line. 21 pressures and 4 sacks. Braxton Jones especially struggled. 9 pressures, 2 sacks, and 4 of them were quick pressures. Lots of penalties yet again. Anything off script, off the opening drive, off the first 15 plays, off any of this looks so bad for this team, offense and defense. They look so discombobulated. This defense, the floodgates just opened. Jared Goff played so well, really calm. They stayed even with their run-pass balance. They definitely saw the second half of that Vikings Jordan Mason attack on the Bears defense, and they ran the ball pretty evenly throughout. And Jared Goff was 23 for 28 for 334 yards, 5 touchdowns. The longest time to throw in a game he's had since 2022. Threw 5 touchdowns in a game against the Bears. The first time that's happened to the Bears since 2014. And also the first time since 2014 the Bears have allowed 50-plus points in a game. The Renaissance is off.
Yeah, rest in peace to the Renaissance. we had a great 2 quarters, but I think
3 quarters.
We had 3 quarters.
It was 3.
Dang it, we had 3 quarters.
We'll give him credit for those full 3 quarters. I mean, it's not something that Ben Johnson should be upset about, and he's right. Like Dan Campbell with Ben Johnson there, Dan Campbell without Ben Johnson there, they run the score up. It was 21 to 45. And then Jared Goff is throwing that pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown where like the drive started with a pass on that possession. So it's like they were trying to score, which is what they do.
Yeah.
But
like,
he was running it up.
I love that too, because so often I watch these games in garbage time and teams can't do anything in garbage time when they're trying to. Like they're just out there trying to play and execute offense. I don't think that all of the Lions' interior offensive line problems are completely solved. I don't think that Jared Goff, being as in tune with his offensive coordinator, John Morton, compared to all the continuity he had with Ben Johnson over the years, it is solved. The only way that you're going to get better is to do it on Sundays. And yes, you get a little extra to do it against Ben Johnson's Bears. Dan Campbell, after the game, said, we wanted to go out there and put on a little show. And yeah, if you see the spray chart from Jared Goff, his next-gen stats, it's just a beautiful. How would you describe this? What we don't see is a lot of incomplete passes.
It's the Bellagio fountain.
I mean,
it honestly looks like a middle finger to Ben Johnson.
it's a huge.
Oh my God, it does.
Middle finger.
It is
to the Chicago Bears.
Oh my God.
For just doubting, even for a second, that you could hang with the Detroit Lions.
Well, and you know what? I was really impressed with Jared Goff because it didn't start. I mean, this team started out pretty even. They, this looked like, okay, maybe this is going to be close there just for a hot second there. And then Jared Goff on that drive where he gets the ball to that insane sideline one-handed catch to Isaac Tesla. There were a couple completions on that drive that he kind of sidestepped pressure a little bit, then stood in while that secondary rush came and got him and popped him. Mm-hmm. And he stood in and he completed throws. And he really stayed composed. And then, after some of the turnovers they had, they would go out and they'd run the ball 6 times in a row. I mean, this was a team that was settling itself down as it went. It was getting that rhythm as it went. And then on the other side, much better performance from this defense, from this Lions defense than in week 1. One of the coolest moments of the game was when Aiden Hutchinson recorded his first sack back home in front of the fans since getting hurt. And he blew like he was on stage. Like he blew several kisses to the crowd, double hand kisses to the crowd, and was such a showman in the best way about it. You could tell it was a really emotional moment for him. It was a really emotional moment for the fans. That crowd was juiced the whole way through.
And these are the good old days. A day like this for the Lions fans was better than basically any days for decades on end for the Lions. So they are going to enjoy the hell out of this. And they're going to feel great about getting Jameson Williams like 2 40-plus yard plays, including a 64-yarder. He had a touchdown. Amon-Ra goes over 100, gets 3 touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs has a 42-yard run. He gets his touchdown. Like, everyone got theirs today. I don't think everything's solved, but everything is looking a little familiar in the NFC North with the Bears at 0-2. All right, the revenge portion of the program, not over, but we are going to take a quick break. And on the other side, we're going to talk about DK Metcalf against the team that traded him away.
Walker now in the backfield. JSN wide to the left side, and Walker's going to get the toss. He's going left side. He's got some blocking. He turns upfield. He's down inside the 5. Touchdown! Seahawks! Ken Walker the third. If the Steelers are going to load up near the line of scrimmage, Walker is going to flank you to the left and run right past you, and he does. The Seahawks score again. It is 30-17.
Oh, they say that preseason's a liar. But sometimes you see the great Seahawks running game in the preseason, and it actually shows up when it matters a week late. That was Steve Rabel, Kiro, Kenneth Walker, with a big-time day in a 31-17 victory. He finishes with 105 yards on the ground. They were the tougher team. Dare I say they were the more Steelers-y team, Jourdan.
Yeah, and Greg, we've talked a lot about omens since the season began, and these coordinators that show their play script, and they kind of design their first several calls as to what they want to send a subliminal message to the public, to the cognoscenti, viewing,
or to themselves sometimes.
Viewing the games, or to themselves sometimes. At the start of this one, Seattle scored a touchdown on a play action pass. You remember those? Did not see them in week 1. Definitely saw them again this time, and it was Torrey Horton's first career touchdown. From there, as soon as Seattle settled down, and this was largely through the second half, they loaded up. They used extra tight ends. They used their fullback, Robbie Outs. They used heavy personnel, and they ran the ball really physically. I loved how everyone sold out for the blocking. That Kenneth Walker touchdown, you could see on the perimeter, guys shedding their inside blockers and flushing out to the outside to sell out, put their bodies in the way to create space for him to run. You could see how much room he knew he had with that little skip step at the end of the touchdown. I will say it took him a minute to get kind of regathered back into this identity that they showed us during the preseason, because it looked at the start that it was all about the Steelers' defense. These splash plays were insane. Jalen Ramsey picked off a throw intended for Cooper Kupp, former Super Bowl teammate. Really smart play. He saw Sam Darnold's eyes drop and knew the ball was also dropping for the under concept. Instead of leading Cooper Kupp on the throw where Cooper Kupp probably had a touchdown, Jalen Ramsey took a guess and played the underneath. The ball came underneath. He picked it off. The problem here, and it plagued the Steelers all day, they only got 3 points off of that, right? And then after a blocked field goal, which, removed potential points from Seattle, Jalen Ramsey again. And this is all first half. Jalen Ramsey again. The Steelers fail to get any points on the following possession. So this is like, all of this is happening. And then all of a sudden, they start running slants away from Jalen Ramsey. They figure out where he's lined up and they block him out of the play. Or they start designing their pass concepts away from wherever he's at on the field. This was a tale of two halves for the Steelers defense and the Seahawks offense, because once they changed their plan and adjusted into this heavier, we are going to be physical, we are going to bully you. It really helped the Seahawks that Alex Highsmith had to leave the game with an ankle, might be out for a few weeks now. This was absolutely a Seahawks team that settled in and rediscovered who they were, and they showed us who they wanted to be with that first play of the game.
And it happens, in all due respect to the Seahawks performance, against a Steelers defense that starts, and I know Highsmith left the game to look very funny in the light after we saw what the Jets and Breece Hall did. Kenneth Walker has this performance with not even that many carries, and to where I wondered, I know some guys had made some guesses on that Kenneth Walker run and ultimately were wrong, but maybe some business decisions were made as well for Kenneth Walker to go skipping in the end zone there. And Aaron Rodgers, on plays that lasted over 2.5 seconds, he had 141 yards through the air, 0 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions with a passer rating of 28.5.
There's a tail, and that's a great point, because he looked bad.
Yeah.
And he looked like he was in pain for a lot of the time that he was playing. He made bad decisions on some of his throws, things that you would expect him to take a risk on, sure, if this was 10 years ago, but you don't necessarily expect him. I'll get to it in a minute, but there's a tale of these two quarterbacks, the pressure that they faced and the decisions they made out of that pressure. Sam Darnold got the crap beat out of him earlier, and he looked skittish and he looked jittery and he looked like, he was.
You were honking in the first half of this game.
Like,
Greg, you might have been right about Sam Darnold.
It
always was.
And I go,
both
Sam.
hands on the football, Darnold shuffle. Just looks awkward.
And I go, Sam. At one point I went, Sam, and he didn't play a totally clean game. He got hit. He turned the ball over. But there was a 3rd and long later in the game that Patrick Queen got in as a rusher, and he got there almost too fast, really, on the play. And Sam Darnold evaded the pressure very, very calmly and then dumped the ball off for a first down and then took a play later to JSN, who had another really good game as the clear number 1 receiver on this football team. And Jalen Ramsey was covering it. So it was just like that. The entire switch flips. And then the tail of the other conversion was Aaron Rodgers on a 3rd and 6 deciding he was going to cut and run for the sticks, a conversion he would have made. He had the flat open, Leonard Williams in pursuit, and he looks behind him and he sees Leonard Williams bearing down on him, and it's almost like he flinched. And he got pulled down, and he was 2 yards short. And this is not what we would have seen, A, the risk-taking, and B, the level of athleticism that just is not there. And he forced the ball. He missed some throws. He got really annoyed. You could tell he was irritated through a lot of this game. And one of the 2 huge mistakes of this game, we'll get to the second in a minute, was the interception that he threw. This was a end zone interception that nullified potential points for the Steelers as they were trying to actually stay competitive in this game. And it's Darion Kendrick, the cast-off from the Los Angeles Rams, who makes the play on the ball that is forced between multiple defenders in the end zone. And it just, this was just, they basically, both of these teams switched places as the game went on.
And this is one of the best defenses in the league, at least I thought it was coming into the season. So it doesn't totally shock me, but it's pretty one-sided in terms of the yardage, in terms of the pressure. Boye Mafe and Derek Hall had 2 of the highest, if not, I think, of the 3 highest pressure rates of the early window. So the offensive line hasn't looked that good for the Steelers. They weren't really able to run the ball. Other than this insane Jaylen Warren play where he goes 65 yards and makes a million people miss on a really short pass.
But he throws the pick after it.
Right. Rodgers basically doesn't have any, meaningful production the rest of the day. So very concerning. And Devin Witherspoon, was banged up in this game, didn't play, that they lose the second half 24-3 against the Seattle Seahawks. Both of these teams, though, 1-1. It's early. They've got all the time in the world to bounce back. But Mike Tomlin was annoyed. We hadn't even gotten to the big...
the biggest mistake of the game.
Right. Let's listen to it.
Getting ready to boot it away is Myers, a low line drive kick, Gainwell and Johnson. As the ball bounces through the hands of Johnson and into the end zone, it's going to stay in the end zone. The Seahawks fall on it in the end zone. It's going to be a touchdown, Seahawks. The ball went through the hands of the kick returner, He touched it. It landed in the end zone. The ball hit in the landing zone on a kickoff. Somebody's got to cover it for the receiving team. It was recovered by the kicking team in the end zone. Touchdown. Holy catfish!
That is absolutely...
Even the officials annoyed, and that's on the way to 17 unanswered points by the Seattle Seahawks, by the way.
Let's listen to Mike Tomlin asked about it after the game.
It's poor judgment by a young player.
Is something you specifically work on in practice?
Every day of our lives.
That's brutal. That's brutal for Caleb Johnson because he hasn't gotten a lot of playing time.
2 snaps on offense.
And to have that happen, looking at the reverse angle from the top, he looks away before the ball stop. I wonder because I know like there's he's a rookie, awareness of the rules. I'm legitimately wondering if he thought the ball was going to bounce out and it checked up at the end zone.
Man, the kickoff is such a bigger part of every single game in the NFL now in many different ways. That was one of them, and they'd paid for it big time. And maybe that play will kind of cover up all the issues that they have on their defense right now and on the offense. Other than Warren, because of that big catch, like none of their receivers over 31 yards. Let's go to a team with some quality wide receivers that went to Nashville today.
Big moment here. 3rd and 5 in the red zone. A field goal and it's still a 1-score game. A touchdown and the Rams are in the driver's seat. Big blitz coming. Stafford heaves from his heels. Hits Devontae. It's a touchdown. Back right pylon. Adams first as a Ram. Touchdown LA. How about the guts from Stafford to hang in and hit the fadeaway?
Oh, the guts of a burglar. That's JB Long on KSPN. Devontae Adams with his first score, his first 100-yard game as a member of the Los Angeles Rams. 106 on 6 catches. Puka Nacua adds a 45-yard touchdown run on our favorite 4th and 1 play where they in the Cooper Cup play from the Super Bowl. And oh, by the way, 8 for 91 through the air. Like, they will need other people to contribute, and I'm sure, some people are, but they don't need that much more to have a pretty great offense. 33-19, the Rams win in Nashville.
Yeah, and it was an offensive performance where they kind of pulled away late, and for the second consecutive week, these Tennessee Titans and Cam Ward have made things very interesting, but it's ultimately the Rams defense that proves to be stifling. Byron Young got 2 sacks. 2 out of the 5 times that Cam Ward was sacked, and the Rams pulled away in the second half. Obviously, the Puka Nacua play. The best part of that play, which was a little bit because Cooper Cup in the Super Bowl started out wide, and Puka here is one of those McVay wrinkles. Same play, right? But it just looks a little different at the onset. Whittington hit 22 miles per hour, I believe, to catch up to Puka and throw a block there towards the end. So that was great, but it's tough. Because great performance, the Rams 2-0. The NFC West is going to be fun this year. But to look at Cam Ward, which was, again, the reason I wanted to take this game, Ilek Ayomanor is running an out in the red zone. Cam Ward drifts across the field. The entire screening room, including me, is saying, "No, Cam, no! Throw the ball away! What are you doing? No, 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 no!" Yes! What a spectacular throw from Cam Ward. Midair, outside of the numbers, all the way to the T in the end zone on the other side of the field. Are you kidding me? That's what I'm going to remember from this game. Yeah, the Rams won, but this is why the least discussed number 1 overall pick of all time is so fun to watch.
Eric Fisher, begs to differ. But I mean, we could come up with some others, right? But Eric Fisher definitely is the winner in the clubhouse. That's the leader in the clubhouse for throw of the year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because for him to get the depth on that throw from where he threw it is just absolutely outrageous. And for it to come right after he also hits Ayomanor, who is really looking like a great day 3 pick. He was an early 4th round pick. He hit him up the sideline for a beautiful hole shot right before that. Cam Ward ends with, 175 yards, but 19 to 33, and those plays that make you believe if you're a Titans fan. If you're going to lose by 2 touchdowns at home, I feel like this was about as good a way to do that as possible with Ward having his 2nd straight good game.
I know. We're seeing this every week at this point. I know it's only 2 games, but did this in college too, where you just see this fearlessness in how Cam Ward plays. I do think I turned to you at one point today, Greg, in the newsroom, and I was like, he's got a little Matthew Stafford to him in the trick
Very
shots.
much.
in the trick shots that he tries and some of the arm angles that he takes, it is sort of ironic in that sense that right after that touchdown, Matthew Stafford and the Rams offense go out on the field and Matthew Stafford is intercepted, which is the true quintessential Matthew Stafford experience, right? This was an interesting game to me because it's been the script of a lot of Rams games for a couple of years now where they start really, really slow. And, we said that the Titans defense was creditable earlier this week, and they are, and they're respectable. But it's also the Rams playing down to an opponent and starting slow yet again in the double digits over the last couple of seasons where it's either one touchdown or no touchdowns at all in the first quarter.
I mean, they end up, like you said, always fixing it. Not always, but this time, you end up with 7.5 yards per play in the end. It looks like a dominant performance. You mentioned Jordan Whittington, who's stepped in really
stuff to him
and become their number 3 receiver. They didn't like when we made fun of Tutu Atwell's $10 million contract. Well, he has 4 yards through 2 weeks, and Whittington's like a bigger part. I'm sure he'll have his moments too.
And I would posit that if Miami were 2-0, they'd be trying to trade for him right now.
I noticed the difference in terms of just pressure, though. Cam Ward takes 5 sacks. The Rams defensive line has 6 tackles for loss. There's 4 passes defense, whereas Matthew Stafford was under much less pressure. Byron Young is off to a really fast start this season. So that combination of these incredible wide receivers and just enough pass rush gets the Rams to 2-0. Jourdan also survives. Good job picking the Rams here. She doesn't take it seriously.
I do take it so seriously.
Literally, when I said, "Oh, your survivor pick's in a little trouble," when they were down 13-10.
I said I'm not worried.
You were like, "Oh yeah, like I care so much." You said that.
I said I'm not worried about it because I care so much.
But see, when you said that was actually the first time I was like, "Oh, maybe she does care a little bit."
Well, I'm competing with you, Greg.
Oh.
So No, you guys. Also, rookie edge rusher Josiah Stewart records his first sack today, and he's all over the field on that insane Cam Ward throw, almost gets to the pressure. It is weird to me that he's wearing number 10. I will point that out.
A lot of weird numbers around the NFL these days.
I love it.
Bryce Huff wearing a 47. We'll get to him later.
I know. Me and Greg were like, who the hell is that? Oh, that's Bryce Huff.
All right. So that was the Rams. They get to 2-0. Titans at 0-2. It's time for the Sunday Drive presented by Toyota. Let's go places, specifically MetLife Stadium.
The Bills are right back in 13 personnel. Cook the lone setback. Here's the snap. It's another handoff. Cook going to cut it back through a hole. Dodges a defender. Up and out the gate to the races. Down to the 20. 10, 5. Touchdown, James Cook. 44 big ones for the score. James Cook was out the gate, and it was taillight time.
His ability to break those tackles and change direction, if we had a run of the year, I think that's it so far. 44 yards to the house. That was Chris Brown, WGR. Bills win 30-10 in a game that wasn't nearly that close. I'm going to get a lot of picks wrong this year. We'll see if I can get any pick more wrong than this. Because I thought the Jets were a bad matchup. I thought they would win this game straight up until we were in garbage time of this game. It was 383 yards to 87, 24 first downs to 5. Justin Fields had fewer yards passing in this game than Mitchell Trubisky did on his one throw that he threw in the first half after Josh Allen appeared to break his nose and it just exploded into a sea of blood. The Bills are the team, Patrick, I think that the Jets want to be, at least offensively. Like, the Jets want to be that great offensive line in this game. Like, hey, we don't even need our quarterback to be efficient or effective throwing the ball. We are just going to mash you running the ball. Like, that's what the Bills did. They were much better at that style of play than the Jets were today.
Yeah, and it's maybe we were, and maybe you believed in the Jets a little too much after the performance.
I know I did.
The Pittsburgh Steelers.
Beware the moral victory. This happens all the time. Whenever someone has a moral victory, they inevitably play worse the next week and then just lose by more.
And there were some things that schematically didn't make a lot of sense to me. There was some implementation about the officiating as well as the spotters, because Justin Fields, not only did the Jets put Mason Taylor in a situation where he was blocking Bosa off the edge, but Mason Taylor was on the injury report, wasn't even sure if he was going to play. Then he gets lined up to block Bosa, who gets a hit on Justin Fields, lands on the back of his head, gets up, he's a little wobbly, then gets hit on the next play, leaves the game with a concussion. I just wonder, like, you have to be able to implement things to protect the players in that situation better, because multiple folks let Justin Fields down on that one. He leaves the game. Tyrod comes in garbage time. But this was, there was just no opportunity for the Jets almost throughout this game. Like you mentioned, Josh takes the hit in the nose, and I'm sure like all of upstate New York was calling for a visor for Josh at that point when you see a hand get in the helmet. And Mr. Trubisky comes in and fires one immediately.
Like a perfect layered throw, 27 yards down the field. Reminded me, it was to Josh Palmer, and it reminded me a ton of the throw to Josh Palmer that Josh Allen made, his best throw of the week last week on Sunday Night Football. And I was like, damn, Mitch, I didn't know you had it in you. At that point in the game, I believe Trubisky had more yards passing than Allen. He started out like doing nothing, and they were still trailing. Like the biggest offensive play early was a 40-yard Josh Allen run, but it really didn't matter because Justin Fields was off. He did have some open receivers early that he missed. The offensive line wasn't nearly as good in this game either. And then on the other side of the ball, the Jets defense has been a disaster through 2 weeks. I think Justin Fields has been so extreme, it's going to take attention away. Last week was his best week in his entire career in EPA per play. Number 1 in 46 starts. This week was his worst week in his entire career out of 46 starts. So that's going to get the attention. What's been consistent is the Jets defense through 2 weeks, I would say, is the worst combination of completely undisciplined, crazy amount of penalties and busts, and no disguise at all. They're just lining up. They're showing you they're in man. They're showing you they're in zone. And the Bills knew exactly what to do when they saw that.
Yeah, it is interesting. I know it's a little coordinator change, right? Steve Wilkes is over there now, and they've had some changes in personnel, but like this defense should not be as clear as it is to
You figure it's Aaron Glenn really running the show.
Yeah, I mean, but Aaron Glenn's not calling plays or anything like that. And these are two very competent senior defensive minds who are in these roles because they are very good at these jobs. And like that is concerning to me because at some point you do understand that, you know, maybe they're just not as one-for-one talented all over the roster as they used to be, but they still do have some players.
Right.
And so you would hope to see a little bit more, I guess, or less mental mistakes out of this group, I guess you would say, especially not used to seeing that from an Aaron Glenn or a Steve Wilkes team, those types of mental mistakes.
They've got some bad combinations, I think, in the secondary. I think their linebackers like Sherwood and Quincy Williams are too similar. They're like these kind of crazy run after it. You miss CJ Mosley right now. It was just like a come down to earth moment for the Jets because they were getting booed hard in the second quarter. A come down to earth moment for me. I apologize to Eric. You know, I apologize to the Bills fan.
I mean, I'll own the L too because I was so high on this run game for the Jets. I still am, but man, it's going to be feast or famine sometime.
No, but for doubting, this is a team that has Super Bowl aspirations, and for them to. They almost felt like the way they talked throughout the week and then after this, that they felt like they were bouncing back from a win, even as great as that performance was, at least on the defensive side of the ball. And they didn't have their two best defenders from a week ago in this game. Teron Johnson, Ed Oliver were out of this game. It was ugly. So yes, booing in MetLife Stadium was probably the crowd reaction I'll remember most from today, except for the entire Lions crowd chanting F Ben Johnson at the end of that game, which was delightful.
And kind of booing us in a way, Greg, for being so excited about the Jets and so worried about the Bills.
I guess I know just like a small fraction of what it's like to be a Jets fan. I committed myself to this team today. But great job by the Bills. Seriously, they are looking already 2 weeks in like they might cruise to this division. That was the Sunday Drive presented by Toyota. Let's go places. Let's go to the desert.
Bryce Young in shotgun. The Cardinals rush 4. Young back to pass. Pressure in Young's face. He's hit. He's sacked. It's Calais Campbell who ends the game in his first game back at State Farm Stadium, wearing all red. Calais the hero, and this game finally will come to an end.
Oh, man. If we could play a Calais Campbell game-winning sack in the year 2025, we are going to do it. This man is 39 years old, was drafted in 2008. Thought he was maybe the best player on the field for their defense. A week ago, was a key player tonight, and he said it was important that he got to rotate in and out. He wasn't nearly as tired by the end of the game as he was a week ago, and they were holding on for dear life. That was Dave Pasch, by the way, on KMVP. Cardinals win 27-22 in a game that looked completely over. The Cardinals up 3 scores and driving in the fourth quarter before a Kyler Murray interception kick-started a wild comeback, and the Panthers actually having the ball with a chance to win the game at the end.
Yeah, it was such a inversion of a game from most of it until that final quarter, and especially, some of the second half overall, but especially that final quarter, and then it got really weird at the end. Calais Campbell, by the way, was one of many Cardinals players defensive players especially, who left the game at one point. Calais Campbell, thank goodness for the Cardinals, did return to make that game-sealing play at the very end. But by the end of the game, there are 2 cornerbacks on the field named Denzel Burke and Catrell Clark. They were missing Will Johnson, who has a groin injury, according to Jonathan Gannon, Max Melton, and Garrett Williams. And they were down to, again, these deep backups because they already have been dealing with injuries at this position, outside and inside at this point. And Jonathan Gannon really, really loves to play dime defense, and he loves to play rotating coverages and shift his DBs around and really mix up the looks there. And then he kind of operates back to front in that way, which means that what he wants to do on the back end of his defense will often dictate the type of pressure that he wants to run. Okay, well, down multiple scores, what starts happening? But they start losing corners, right? Starting with Melton. And then, Williams comes in and out of the game. Johnson goes out. They start playing a really regulated defense, right? This is basically playing rules ball against Bryce Young and the Panthers, playing more vanilla coverages than you're used to seeing from Jonathan Gannon, not being able to play as much dime. At this point, Bryce Young kind of starts dealing a little bit. He starts slinging the ball around. They end up mounting Bryce Young and Hunter Renfrow led comeback.
I mean, after halftime, they go touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. Now, it took them forever. It was 14 plays, 12 plays. But until that last drive, which was a total unmitigated disaster, almost for both teams. But for the Cardinals, it was just that they were committing turnovers. For the Panthers, it was that they couldn't protect Bryce. He couldn't make a decision. He was holding on to the ball. He was making groaner after groaner of decision. And it just is part of a season that's already been mostly down, ups and downs, but mostly downs for Bryce. And it started today with 2 turnovers in the first 2 drives.
And they get a couple of gifts from the Cardinals. One is that Arizona abandoned the run game with a lead. They just did not run the ball. It felt like they didn't try. Kyler had a nasty interception where he was hit as he threw that kind of gave the Panthers, while they were on that touchdown run in the second half, another opportunity. In fact, I think it was after the first touchdown as well. So they really made it a game after that. The onside kick comes back. But yeah, the penalties on that drive, a lot of them on third down as well, and fourth down. That just, it was like the Cardinals did everything they could to give Carolina a chance, but Carolina refused to snatch this victory.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Panthers for recovering an onside kick and just making us all feel like it's possible again.
They're first in 89 games.
In the first in the NFL in a while. I think there was at, a 4% hit rate last year. I think there was only 4 that hit. It is very difficult.
And of course, it bounces accidentally off a Cardinals defender's foot, and then Mac Wilson touches it, right? And then that's what happens. Because that was what this game was. Arizona got really sloppy when they had the lead. They were up 27-10. Kyler made an incredible, only Kyler Murray can make this play. Christian Roseboom was blitzing on a delayed blitz, and he was able to get to him free. But then Kyler Murray, sort of just makes his shoulder go limp and then scoots out of it. And I wish there was like a Looney Tunes soundtrack to the corresponding 30-yard run, like all over the field. But then they turn it over, and that's a hit by someone named Patrick Jones. And then TJ Wanham picks it off, and Bryce Young, after that, goes 14 plays and 88 yards on a really nice drive for the touchdown. I really appreciated the way that he handled pressure on that. Now, they weren't sending their normal type of pressure. They ran out of DBs, so they couldn't send the type of pressure Jonathan Gannon wants to send. But Bryce Young shook off Baron Browning, creates the flat was open because the backup defensive back was in the game and got mixed up on the play. And he found Chuba Hubbard for the touchdown, made it 27-15. I mean, and then Arizona goes 3-and-out. This was the story of the second half for the Cardinals, just playing with their food and stalling out after a lead.
They got that lead, though, with some of the players that they brought in. Like Josh Sweat started the game with the strip sack. They had a defensive touchdown from Zaven Collins. So the Cardinals offense only scored 20 points in this game. The defense gets a touchdown early off that Josh Sweat strip sack, and then they pick off Bryce the very next drive. So their defense got it done. They're going to hope to get some of their players back healthy in the secondary. That is concerning because that's one of the reasons why we like this team a lot. And for the Panthers, what a disappointing 0-2 start, because even though they rallied a little late, for Bryce to make that many mistakes in the first 2 weeks and for them to feel like one of the worst teams in the NFL, at least just through 2 weeks, is really disappointing to be back in that position. At least Ted McMillan looks like a dude, like 6 for 100, and has made some of the best incomplete catches out of bounds I have ever seen in my life. So they got this one right. Ted McMillan is a dude.
Yeah, it's too bad.
And they will move on.
We cannot find another high draft pick, Xavier Legette, anywhere on the field. Targeted late in the fourth quarter. He had 4 targets, 1 catch for -2 yards, and then got targeted twice in a row by Bryce Young on a potential touchdown. And one of them was defended, and the other one just sailed right over his head. I mean, it's
8 targets, -2 yards is a rough day. So that they are still searching. Another team that was searching, at least for a starting quarterback today, was the San Francisco 49ers. A lot of injuries. They go into New Orleans, and they get a dub.
1:03 left on the clock. San Francisco 26, Saints 21. 4th and 2. The biggest play of the game coming up. Rattler with the snap. Here comes pressure. Fumble by the 49ers.
There's that 47.
Football. On 4th and 2, the pressure came. Rattler fumbled the football. Cicero Ruiz got it back. It doesn't matter. On 4th and 2, the defense comes up big again, Tim.
You got to have finishers, and Bryce Huff finishes around the corner.
Oh, that's why they traded for Bryce Huff, Robert Saleh's old binky from the New York Jets. Around the corner, the 49ers stop a New Orleans fourth quarter rally. For the second straight week, Spencer Rattler played pretty well and had the ball, needing a touchdown at the end, couldn't get it done. That was Carlos Ramirez and Tim Ryan on KSFO. Nick Bosa also with some big plays late in this game, but I assigned myself this game mostly for one reason, the storyline.
You secretly love the Saints?
No,
Oh.
because Mac Jones and Kyle Shanahan were a love that was never consummated, Patrick. Back in that draft. And I just wanted to see what sweet, sweet music they could make together. And after an 0 for 4 start from Mac, the rest of the game, he goes 30 of 39 for 279 and 3 touchdowns and a lot of third and long conversions. I thought that was the difference, was Kyle Shanahan dialing up perfect plays on third down where he found mismatches, and ultimately Mac Jones being good enough to deliver the ball to those mismatches.
There were so many moments where I'm looking back and listening to Gregg Rosenthal's voice in my head as Kyle Shanahan and Mac Jones embrace each other on the sideline.
I think it is. You ever hear those stories about like a couple in high school? Maybe they have like a little bit of a fling, but it doesn't work out. They move on with their lives for years and years, and then they reconnect years later, and suddenly they start making sweet, sweet love, or football, whatever it is. Mac Jones, he's that man
for Kyle Shanahan. It's all he ever wanted was Mac Jones in this offense. I think it's going to happen this week. Mac plays the best football that he's ever played. They get the win.
And that's Greg referencing love itself between Kyle Shanahan and Mac Jones. And we got to see that love come to fruition here in this moment where there were some up and down moments for Mac Jones in this one, but the crosser to Jennings that he takes to the house, they desperately need Jourdan Jennings.
Yeah.
This team, it seems to hinge on whether or not he's healthy. And then Christian McCaffrey running a route against the corner, like still being CMC, still winning.
Pure filth.
In the back of the end zone. That was nasty. That this team being at 2-0, the Cardinals being at 2-0, the Rams, it's a fun division, but they're going to need Brock.
They're going to need Brock in the long run, but this is kind of like one of those games I'm talking about where it's like manage the schedule. It's you don't have Kittle, you don't have Mac Jones. I think the Saints are a little better than people think. They're not great, but they've taken like a good, honest effort by these two NFC West teams to come in there. And in both games, like when you're looking at yardage and most of the plays, like they've been two pretty evenly played games. But you mentioned that late first half Christian McCaffrey 7-yard touchdown pass. That was a great 2-minute drive by Mac Jones in the offense because they got the ball with about a minute to go and went right down the field. And that was a great route by McCaffrey. But I was thinking of another like 3rd and long in a key spot in the second half where he gets him matched up against Pete Warner. And like, there's just no chance. And there was just a few of those 3rd down mismatches where Kyle was in his bag. Like Jake Tonjes, the hero from a year ago, with a very Kyle Juszczyk type of route where he's like almost like a fullback on the play and he totally confuses the Saints and he's wide open on 3rd down. You mentioned the long Jennings touchdown. There just was a lot of coaching wins, I thought, and Kyle will appreciate. I think Mac Jones basically did what Kyle wanted to do and didn't freak out, didn't have those freak out Mac Jones moments other than like the first drive of the game or so.
He played a clean game over the next couple of weeks. That is all Kyle Shanahan wants from his quarterback is to play it.
He did fumble twice, I should point out, while we're singing his praises.
Sure. In terms of his passing, he played a clean game, no interceptions, 3 touchdowns, 279 yards, 26 for 39. You know, he see ball where ball must go, listen and ear where ball must go, throw ball to that spot. That is what, for the next few weeks until Brock Purdy, who can throw it around a little bit more and can take the risky throws. We've seen him gain Kyle Shanahan's trust in order to do that. This is going to be one of those things where if he is debuting like this, Mac Jones is for Kyle, the way that Kyle clearly and really wants him to, Kyle and the rest of this offense will do the rest. And that is where I think that this is actually a sneaky good situation minus the injury. But if you're going to have a backup, have the backup who is going to adhere exactly to what the head coach is going to want you to do.
He kind of reminded me of Purdy in this game too, because they did not play that well on 1st and 2nd down. And there were a lot of 3rd and long situations where he was not afraid to fire it in there. I think one of the biggest plays of the game was Ricky Pearsall coming back. Those Mac Jones passes take a while to get there and they're just in there and it's 3rd and long and he puts it in the right spot for Pearsall, but it's just hanging up there. And I'm like, someone is going to knock that away or intercept it, but Pearsall comes back for the ball. And there were a couple plays like that where I just thought it was good teamwork, like good receiving. Kendrick Bourne had 3 catches in this game, but they all felt like big plays. Like he was playing a lot. And I think CMC's juice is back. I was a little bit on CMC juice watch last week.
Oh.
Not that he's on the juice, but just like I didn't see quite the explosion. There have been accusations, not by me.
I would
this one more just like he actually played, I think, with a little more explosion, like he warmed up last week.
Yeah, I mean, watching his movement on that touchdown route that he ran, but then also, and I realized just now I sounded like I was like not giving Mac Jones credit for making a couple of good throws. One, the Jourdan Jennings big gain touchdown, that's a timing throw. Like you have to really understand exactly when the receiver is going to hit the void between all of the defenders at the exact perfect time and understand where you've got to put the ball at a certain point in your drop, right? And then the CMC touchdown, you have to drop that pass up and over the top of the defender without getting a lot of reps to do that with the running back in practice because Christian McCaffrey is still on that sort of like half practice workload, right? Because he's been doing that. That's his quote unquote normal load management. So I want to give Mac Jones the credit there. I'm just saying that like this cast, even without George Kittle as a security blanket, has plenty of players who are willing and able to also come and help the quarterback as well as the head coach scheming things up.
Yeah, got to be a frustrating game, I think, for the Saints when they look back at it. Again, they look good when they're playing fast and hurry up. Spencer Rattler had a similar day to a week ago. I mean, you look at it, he throws a for 207 yards and 3 touchdowns on 34, like only 9 incompletions. And some of the prettiest passes you'll see, like he just dropped a dime to Shaheed in the first half of this game. There was a great touchdown to Vela, even though it was short, like it was the right read. Olave, like he had some dimes, but the timing was just a little off a couple times. Like they could have gone up an early touchdown and he misses Olave, who's wide open because he's just a little early on the throw and like just missing. A lot of drops too for the Saints offense.
Johnson had a couple.
Juwan Johnson had at least 2 or 3. They had 4 drops in the first half, like a lot of penalties. So just too many mistakes by the Saints for the second straight week, though they were competitive. Let's take a break, and afterwards we're going to be welcoming in Nick Shook to talk about maybe the game of the day.
Okay, right hash, 46, win the game. Good operation, 46, the kick. Wins the game. Butter, 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 butter. Extra butter. Cowboys win in overtime, 40-37. Aren't you glad you paid attention to this game?
Oh, I am. That's Sham God. Brad Sham. KRLD. Brandon Aubrey really is smooth like butter. Apparently, Cowboys crew and Eric was listening in. We're talking about Brandon Aubrey at the end of regulation when they asked him to hit that 64-yarder and they tried to ice him. And they were saying, you can't ice butter. You can't ice butter. And Brandon Aubrey agrees. And he becomes literally the only man in the history of this great league, Nick Shook, to hit a game-tying field goal at the buzzer and a game-winning field goal at the buzzer in overtime, which isn't shocking because how many game-winning field goals have there been at the buzzer in overtime? Not a lot, Nick Shook. And if I was going to guess one kicker to do that, especially hitting from 64 in regulation, it was Brandon Aubrey. So much happened in this game, Nick. The fourth quarter began with the score 17-16, Dallas Cowboys winning. The game ended 40-37. I don't envy you choosing where to even start talking about this, Nick, so I just give the floor to you.
Well, I hate to start with the loser, but the narrative going into this game was Russell Wilson should be benched for Jackson Dart. This might be his last, ditch attempt to get the job. And then he threw for 450 yards and 3 touchdowns, and the people on the broadcast were essentially comparing him to old Seattle Russ, and they even made a let Russ cook mention during the show. That was the story of this game until he threw an interception in overtime, which then set up the Cowboys to lean on Brandon Aubrey to hit that field goal, which, by the way, I've never felt more confident in a kicker making it. That felt like a chip shot for me just watching. Like, he's definitely going to make this. Like, I'd put my whole life on the fact that he's going to make this field goal right now, which he did. The crazier thing, and Mina tweeted this out, is it was diabolical that they would run a draw to set up a 64-yarder for Brandon Aubrey to go to overtime. That's just how much of a weapon he is. And it's obviously huge because it won the game. It sent to overtime and then won the game. But there's so much more to unpack. A quarterback duel, almost identical games. They each threw a pretty bad interception. One cost one team more than the other. You had receivers making plays. For the Giants, it was Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson. For the Cowboys, it was CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens and Jake Ferguson. And you had random breakdowns in coverage. Defense didn't exist in the fourth quarter. It was high-octane football. It was fitting of AT&T Stadium and Jerry World, and it's perfect that it was between the Cowboys and the New York Giants.
Some of the touchdowns in this game were so incredible. I don't know which one to even choose, but I do think we should back it up to the final minute because George Pickens catches a touchdown from Dak Prescott, who played outstanding again, 361 and 2. Mm-hmm. To go up 34-30, and it's back and forth all fourth quarter. There's only 52 seconds left at that point, and the Giants need a touchdown to potentially win the game, and that's exactly what they get only 27 seconds later.
Wilson out of the shotgun set on a 2nd and 10.
Drops back, has time, deep ball, downfield, looking for Neighbors, who makes the catch for the touchdown in double coverage. 48-yard touchdown pass, Wilson and Neighbors, and the Giants take the lead.
Oh, boy.
There were two defenders draped on him, Carl, and Russell Wilson, with his classic moonball, delivers for the Giants.
We could show highlights of this game like all day, Nick. The early Neighbors touchdown was like one of the best plays that you could ever see out of a wide receiver. Wandale had that fourth quarter, like he ends up with 142 yards. Neighbors ends up with 167. Like, are you more worried about the Dallas defense or just impressed that the Giants could do this without much of a running game today?
Well, I want to point first to that call because whoever was doing the color commentary there just like softly said, "Oh boy," as if like he needed to sit down and like take a breath.
That was Carl Banks. That was Giants legend Carl Banks. Thank you for pointing that out. And Bob Papa on WFAN.
It was fitting of the day because you could take this in so many different directions. Am I more concerned about the Cowboys? I mean, this is the Cowboys defense we thought, right? We talked about this last week, Greg. They're going to be an offensive team. We know that they're weak on defense, and it did not shock me at all that Wandale's going right down the middle of the field for huge gains through the air. It happened early in the game and then was brought back by a penalty. The Giants started this game very sloppily. There was 4 straight penalties on Hudson, the tackle, the backup tackle who's in there for Andrew Thomas. He had like a mini meltdown on the field, 4 straight penalties in the first quarter. The broadcast team was like, you have to take him out now, right? Like, you've got to make the change. This is a disaster.
And they did. So, and they got better immediately with Marcus Mabo or whatever, however you say that name.
Yes. So, like, that was concerning. I'm not concerned about the Cowboys defense. I'm not at all shocked by it. I just feel bad for the Giants that they're now 0-2, and they played their tails off in this game. Like, they were not the Giants team of last week. They were still limited in the red zone early, and then they broke through in a big way, and they were making splash plays all afternoon. And I'm like, this is the Brian Daboll offense. We always imagined it to be in New York, and yet they still come out on the losing side of the ledger. The Cowboys are just going to have to put up a lot of points this season. It's just, it's who they are. They can't cover effectively. We know Trevon Diggs is still, like, he didn't start the season 100% healthy and at 100% participation rate. That continues to increase, but we just know that they're lacking after they traded Micah Parsons, and this is just their reality.
Well, it gets better because they signed Jadeveon Clowney.
Oh boy, here we go.
The boss announcing that today.
I mean, it's not a bad idea.
They have a glaring need at edge for some reason, which I think may kind of play into these moonball situations where if 11 at the time is on the field for the Dallas Cowboys, typically Russell Wilson isn't going to have time to make some of these throws where it's just, but even like Pop Warner level, to let Malik Neighbors get behind you with 26 seconds on the clock is insane.
Well, and over in the game, like it wasn't the first time.
And also, like, there was a bounce back game for CD. Got 11 targets, caught 9 of them after all the drops. You mentioned Dak playing well. And also Javonte Williams.
He's back.
He's fully
Heck
back.
Yeah.
Like, this is a contributing, viable fantasy team member at this point. And
130 yards from scrimmage, including 6 catches.
But all the conversation about the Giants front, and for all the bluster from Phillips and his like personal beef with CeeDee Lamb and trying to slam him over, they struggle to cover him and Pickens, which is the vision coming in.
I was hoping for points for this one because the Cowboys are a little last year's Bengalsy a little bit to me in terms of they are just going to have to score as many points as possible to even stay in these games. And I can't help myself. I find myself really liking watching this Brian Schottenheimer team.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I just sort of am like, all right, well, we just won't really watch defense at this point because it's not really happening. But at the same time, Dak Prescott is playing some of the best football of any quarterback in the NFL right now. And Brian Schottenheimer is calling a really smart game. His run game with Clayton Adams and Javonte Williams is so solid. Clayton Adams being the offensive coordinator and former offensive line coach who came over from Arizona. This is a really, really fun, frisky offense. And then to the point of the Russell Wilson experience, man, nobody's celebrating harder than I am seeing this totally vintage Russell Wilson moment. But then for every one of those, you get what happens in overtime, which is a bad decision on a moon ball by Russell Wilson that's intercepted.
Well, and that came after, they're at a 2nd and 3 situation after the Giants defense stopped Dak Prescott in overtime. And I just figured first team with the ball wins. and the Giants get the ball, and they're on a 2nd and 3 after a good, drive starter, and Russell Wilson holds on to the ball and by mistake fumbles the ball backwards, and that ends up killing that drive because he essentially just threw it backwards out of bounds, and then the interception. Just a brutal end to what was otherwise like an incredible game, because it wouldn't be fair to say he had just as many mistakes as good plays. He had a million good plays, and the mistakes came in overtime.
He played great, and the mistakes came when they absolutely could not, at the most crucial moment, happen. It's like,
but if his defense just gets a stop at the end of the game, or Brandon Aubrey, then we're never even talking.
The Giants giveth with Russell Wilson, and they taketh away.
Emblematic in this game, which so much happened in this game, but I do have to mention it. There was a play where the Giants had 3 penalties on one play. They were there was an illegal hands, roughing the passer on Dak Prescott, and pass interference on CeeDee Lamb in the end zone, but it got wiped away because CeeDee celebrated the pass interference too vigorously.
Oh my god!
And so it was all wiped away, offsetting penalties, replay the down, and that was this game in a nutshell.
This is the number 1 draft pick in the Game Pass draft, unless you're just in a hurry. Shook, it depends what type of game you want to knock out first. You don't have to though, because you watched it. You also watched a classic. I'm going to call it a classic. It was pretty fun in Lucas Oil Stadium.
3 seconds left. The Colts could win it right here and right now. This will be the last play of the game. They're down by 2. A 60-yard field goal from Spencer Schrader. Sanchez to put it down. Snap, placement, kick. It's on its way. Headed for the uprights, and it is no good. It comes up short. That is on it. Now, wait a minute. There's a flag. There's a flag on the field at the 41-yard line. Hang on just a second. A flag on the play.
Personal foul. Leverage. Defense number 96. Oh, wow. 51 penalty. Automatic first down.
15-yarder. Oh, boy. And this is much more manageable here for Spencer Schrader. This is a 45-yard try to win the game. No time left on the clock. Colts down by 2, 28-26. 45-yard field goal here. Sanchez to put it down. There's the snap. Kick is on its way. Headed for the uprights. And it is good! A walk-off field goal. Spencer Schrader wins it for the Colts. Colts win 29-28. Ball game. I-N-D-Y.
The ecstasy. The agony. Just 30 seconds apart from Matt Taylor and Rick Venturi on WFNY. Yes, the Colts, after thinking the game was over and that they had lost because Shane Steichen had some of the most gutless, pathetic play calling right before that field goal. Not that different, from what Shoddy did with Dallas, but at least Shoddy's got Brandon Aubrey. Gets another shot at it. Schrader hits it. Chuck, you don't want to say a whole game came down to kind of one play, one penalty. In this case, kind of did, but the Colts won it 29-28 and did a lot of other good things in this game. Tell me about it.
Yeah, the whole game came down to 2 right feet. One owned by Spencer Schrader, the other owned by Will Lutz. Will Lutz clanged a field goal off the upright, which kept this a 2-point game and gave the Colts just enough room to move down the field and miss and then actually make that field goal to win the game. But yeah, there was a lot to like from both sides. Daniel Jones has another solid day. I'm starting to accept that maybe this is Daniel Jones with Shane Steichen. Still a little too early to tell. Votes are still being tallied. It's too early to call the race. But right now, as I see it, Daniel Jones looks very comfortable in this offense. He had another strong day. Jonathan Taylor brought great balance to this offense, finishes with 165 yards and 25 attempts. He catches a long pass that sets up a score for them. They had some struggles in the red zone early. They had some struggles getting the ball in the end zone in the fourth quarter. And yet somehow, some way, they make up a deficit with strictly field goals in the fourth quarter. That's how weird this game got. Spencer Schrader keeps his perfect career streak going because he got a second chance. He goes 5 for 5 today. Entering Sunday, he'd made all 9 of his career attempts. Wow. He's as green as it gets, and yet he came through for them, and the Broncos go back to Denver at 1-1, thinking, how on earth did we just lose this game? Because they were seemingly a step ahead for most of this contest. They were good in the red zone early. Bo Nix was slinging the football all over the field. You had nice runs from J.K. Dobbins. Then you had him spike the ball, get a delay of game. Another penalty follows. They knocked themselves out of scoring range. They stall. They shot themselves in the foot a lot, I think, in the second half of this game, which is Sean Payton's going to watch this tape and be pretty frustrated, know that they let one slip away. But it made for a great viewing experience for us.
Nick, I have a question for you. I didn't get to have full view of this game. I was kind of flipping through a couple of others at the same time. And this Colts team, I mean, I love that they're making plays on the ball. I love that they're aggressive. We've been calling it the Anarumo-sance for Louis Anarumo coming over there with a couple of playmakers. I really, really appreciate especially some of the things that schematically Shane Steichen is doing. There's some balance. My question for you is, after watching especially this week 2 is less of a liar game against a top defense, do you think the Colts are bona fide, legit?
I mean, there's levels to legitness, right? Like there's
what's too legit
is the proper word, right? too legit to quit. No, I mean, I think the levels are like they're legit enough to contend for the AFC South if they play like this on a weekly basis, because their defense is playing well enough to keep them in these games, and their offense is balanced and effective through 2 weeks. So yeah, I do very much think that they're a team that's strong enough on both sides of the ball to not collapse or completely fall out of the AFC South race as they have in recent years. And we understand now, after 2 games, why Shane Steichen was so confident in his choice of Daniel Jones. You know, the proof is right there. We can just look at that and be like, all right, I get it. But there's levels to this because of the 2 defenses. I thought Denver's defense would play better in this game. And this is why the first month of the season is a liar to us, because we don't know. A month from now, Denver's defense could be miles ahead of where the Colts are. But as we stand right now, they did a good enough job bottling up the Broncos, especially when it became very important in the second half and the fourth quarter, specifically, to get the job done. And that's really all we can measure them by right now. So yeah, my convoluted answer to that is
yes and no.
I like what I'm seeing so far.
Wait, look, they outgained them by 150 yards, so it was not a cheap victory. The Colts did outgain the Broncos, and Danny Dimes through 2 weeks has 588 yards passing.
Is he playing himself onto quarterback island, Greg?
5 total touchdowns.
What's the most important stat? What's the most important stat with Daniel Jones?
No turnovers.
Yeah.
No turnovers.
Yep.
No fumbles even. Not even like a fumble that he didn't lose.
Yeah, no freakouts yet.
Case.
No freakouts yet.
We're only 2 weeks in. That's the thing about quarterback island. You need a little bit of staying power.
Mm-hmm.
So if he stays at this level, I think it's fair to say right now through 2 weeks, he is helping to define the quarterback position in 2025. He is one of the stories in the NFL. So is Steichen. So is Tyler Warren, who led them. Like,
it's all Tyler
It's
Warren.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like
that play
through
where
2
he
weeks.
came out of the backfield was so much fun. Just shot him right up through the A gap on a sail concept. I loved it so much.
I'm thankful that he
Nick just made a noise.
like confirm my
Do you need a second, Nick, to just like
I loved it. And the
clean
play
up
too.
or anything?
It was worse because you were off
platform.
screen. You were off screen and you made the noise. I was like, should I be here right now?
No, it's gonna be. We're gonna have Shook saying underneath an entire cut up of Tyler Warren, which through 2 weeks. I mean, yeah, the criticism of like, oh, Penn State's forcing him opportunities. Yeah, you force him the ball, you get him the ball however you can. If he could snap the ball, I'd have him do that too.
Right. And I like, Pierce, other than that one catch last week, was quiet. Him and Josh Downs, who both didn't do much a week ago and were both really good, end up being really important parts of this game, whereas like Michael Pittman kind of takes a step back. There is diversity there. And Jonathan Taylor, 215 yards from scrimmage, 25 carries, 2 catches. That's pretty sweet. Bo Nix had a crucial interception in the second half. He said it was just a bad throw. He just missed. There was nothing confusing about it. It is interesting that J.K. Dobbins got so much more of the workload than R.J. Harvey. Troy Franklin with a breakout game, 8 for 89. But the rest of the Broncos receivers didn't really get much going. No one else over 24 yards. So the Broncos, a disappointing loss. We think of Sean Payton as a team that's really buttoned up, disciplined, well coached. He said it after the game, like, we gave this game away. So many mental errors. The Colts are 2-0. Let's go down to the game that no one actually took. That was the game that we all kept an eye on. Yes, things were bad in the AFC East coming into Sunday. Patriots, Dolphins.
And now it's going to be a 4th down and 12 for Miami.
Hill to the left.
It's going to Hill.
Washington, Waddle.
It's going to Hill.
Chan White. Big cushion on the left side as Tagovailoa takes the snap. He drops back. He looks down the middle. He's pressed. He's sacked by Milton Williams. Takedown in the backfield. And the Patriots on the verge of taking down Miami for the first time since 2019 here in South Florida.
That was Bob Sochi with Scott Zolak on WBZ. Wilton Williams got all that money for a reason. Moments like that. A sack to win the game, ending a disastrous final sequence for Tua Tagovailoa, 33-27 in a back in fourth game. And I mentioned that sequence specifically because it really looked like whoever had the ball at the end was probably gonna win. And when the Dolphins got it and they had a short field to work with after the rookie kicker for the Patriots didn't make it to the landing zone, I thought they were gonna go and make it happen. And Tua sails a wide open pass on first down. On third down, he leaves before he really needs to. He had a wide open receiver with a mismatch, Devon Achane, over the middle, going up against a linebacker, which was a mismatch all day. And his eyes go down, and he almost kind of runs into the sack on third down, and then he takes another sack on fourth down. And it was just a really disappointing lack of composure from Tua on a day that he played quite well until that moment. Mike McDaniel was very frustrated with that ending sequence.
Ultimately, I look at absolutely everything falling on me. So I don't see, that's the responsibility of a head coach that you go into knowing that. That being said, I'm very frustrated with, collective, there's some basically coaches and players that did not execute communication in a very dire period of the game. With the game on the line, our communication and our substitution was not up to par. We had the opportunity to win the game, and we robbed it from ourselves.
So I said that Tua played well for most of the game. That was really the second and third quarters where they scored on every possession. But in the fourth quarter, punt, interception, and downs. And I think the thing that killed McDaniel was the interception on fourth down Tua threw on the previous possession where they barely got the playoff before that fourth down, and then he just threw a panic pick. And there were some good things in this game, Patrick, for the Dolphins offensively. But not much on defense, and ultimately it doesn't matter how you lose. With this team, they just desperately needed a win. They didn't get it.
Even the guys who played well relatively today, Devon Achane had a touchdown reception. He had what could have been a go-ahead score in the final minutes of the game, but
we thought it was
stepped out of bounds. Like he fully was celebrating. This was a game where you had Malik Washington have a punt return. The very next play, Antonio Gibson has a kickoff return for a touchdown. So many things happen where the Dolphins, if something good happened, they would immediately give it away. And the only reason the Dolphins didn't still have a streak of the opponent scoring on every single possession was because that Achane score at the end of the first half didn't leave the Patriots enough time, so they kneeled out the clock. Otherwise, the Colts and the Patriots would have gone 3 straight halves of football, scoring every single time they got the ball. So it's a collective failure, as Mike Mack points out, by everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And then even when they finally force a couple punts in the second half and actually stopped the Patriots and forced the field goal to give themselves another chance, there was a lot of mistakes by the Patriots at the end of this game too. Special teams fails, and the defense does give up a touchdown drive too, where Ramondre, gets over on this long throw. Just a lot going wrong, but a lot went right for the Patriots offense too on a day they needed it.
Yeah, I will say this, not to sound dramatic. It will inevitably sound dramatic, sort of like how Mike McDaniel sounded just now. And that dramatic gesture at the end of the game when Milton Williams got the sack and Mike McDaniel sort of folded over on the sideline in disappointment. This very much feels like not only an offense, but a Patriots team that is on the rise of something or at the beginning of something in a positive way. They're starting to put different pieces together. Certainly, you've seen that from some of their veterans, Milton Williams, both weeks, but on their offensive side, definitely saw more of that this week. And on the other hand, it feels like a Miami Dolphins team that is very much at the end of something.
Yeah, seeing Tyreek Hill jump up and down, being upset after Tua skies him with that pass, you're shaking your head, Shook. It's disappointing because, look, Tyreek went 6 for 109, and that was the only incompletion thrown his way, but that's kind of where they're at. And their defense was terrible. This was a game with so few drives. The Patriots only had 7 drives in this game, and Drake May was really efficient with those drives.
Yeah, I'm shaking my head because you're right about Tyreek Hill. I mean, even the body language, he catches a long pass down the sideline and he goes to try to make a move and then gets frustrated that he has to step out of bounds. And you can just see it in his body language in that moment, how irritated he is that he can't make a bigger impact. But I was really shaking my head because Jourdan said exactly what I was thinking. It feels like 2 ships passing the night going in opposite directions. This is the checkpoint. This is where we're going to look back and think that's when the Patriots started to turn their first initial corner. And that was the first real sign that the Dolphins are going toward a dark place under this current regime. Because they're close in terms of how they competed against each other today, and not even the final result, but just how they conducted themselves. And that's concerning for the Dolphins and encouraging for the Patriots. Watching Mike Vrabel sprint down the sideline following Antonio Gibson on that kick return touchdown, I was like, he's having fun. He's back to enjoying coaching. This is a landmark moment for the Patriots under Mike Vrabel. I know it's only week 2, but this is something they're going to look back at and be like, that was it right there. Whereas the Dolphins, everything is difficult for them. The defense that we thought was going to be their strength, especially that front 7, fails to consistently cause issues. Now, they got after Drake May a couple of times, but it just wasn't consistent enough to short-circuit this offense. You're giving up not even a jump ball, just a 50-50 one-on-one shot to Kayshon Boutte in the end zone where he makes a great grab, but you're giving that up for a touchdown. That's a play that you should be able to bat down. That's just the state of your team right now. And even on a day in which Tua plays well for most of the game, they crumble in that final sequence where he just seemed like he was overwhelmed by it. And that's not acceptable for a guy who has as much experience as he does, especially when he's tasked with carrying this team and they just haven't been able to execute this year.
Yeah, you probably won't see a sequence the rest of the year. A 74-yard punt return touchdown by Malik Washington, as Patrick mentioned earlier, followed by the 90-yard kickoff return touchdown. And Stephon Diggs was quoted after the game, asked, if he saw Vrabel running down the sidelines on that kickoff return. He said, "Yeah, I just saw a clip of it. He's slow as hell." It's true. He definitely he played a lot of NFL football, and it's taken a little out of Mike Vrabel, but they got to enjoy a win. And I got a text at the end of this game from a friend of the show, Ollie Connolly, who noted the first game of Drake May's career where he faced under 20% pressure rate, and he shredded. 23 attempts for 230 yards and 2 touchdowns. If you protect this guy, he can perform. And actually, when he was under pressure in this game, 4 for 5 for 105 yards, including that great throw to Ramondre. So on a day where they got almost nothing out of their wide receivers, he was just spreading it around to Hooper and Stevenson and Henry, and just each receiver making like one play.
And
it was enough.
And he moved,
and
too. He wasn't afraid to move around.
Yeah, 10 rushes for 31 yards. I think that includes some kneel downs, too, and the touchdown. And Ramondre, don't dig dirt on his career yet. Travion Henderson is not playing that much right now. I think he will in the end, but only 16 snaps for him today, whereas Ramondre had 142 yards from scrimmage. They get the first win of the Mike Vrabel era. Let's go to Baltimore to wrap up our little Nick Shook 4-pack.
Lamar from the gun will throw. Lofts it near sideline, looking for Hopkins. End zone!
That's a good one.
Touchdown! DeAndre Hopkins, and they're not going to overrule that one.
He has great hands.
It's unbelievable. Lamar just put a loft on that ball and then lets Hopkins make the move on the ball.
Breaking news from Rod Woodson on WBAL. DeAndre Hopkins has great hands. Always good to hear Jerry Sandusky on the show. 41-17. Yes, Nuke has put a highlight touchdown on the board back-to-back weeks, even though he's not getting like a ton of snaps. They'll take that if that can continue all season. Shook, a game where you look at the box score and it's thoroughly confusing. That the Browns ran almost 20 more plays than the Ravens, gained 80 more yards than the Ravens, and yet the score was 41-10 until a late Dylan Gabriel touchdown. That's how ugly this one got for the Browns.
That's going to be the theme of the Brown season, and not to start with the loser, but it's just too fitting. The 2025 Cleveland Browns. How the hell did this happen? That's just what their whole season's going to be. That's going to be their slogan, because once again, in the second straight week, they didn't really dominate in the box score, but they did succeed in the box score, and they lose this time by a wide margin. The Ravens, this is a difference between a team that knows how to win, has been there before, and is going to be a title contender, and a team that is very far from being that. And I don't want to point to the details like I did last week with the Browns, but it wasn't the details. It's also in the fact that no matter how well their defense plays, their offense is so limited that they have to be almost perfect to have a shot against a team like Baltimore. Baltimore gets the job done by, look, their offense struggled, but they had a blocked punt. They capitalized on the short field there for points. They just consistently capitalized on the Browns' small mistakes and then ran away with it in the fourth quarter because they are a team that is still producing explosive plays. We had multiple touchdown passes of 20-plus yards. Tez Walker continues his streak of only catching touchdown passes. He's got 3 career receptions. They've all gone for touchdowns.
The AFC's Isaac to Slaw. Like, little different, but similar vibe.
Yeah, similar vibes. Yeah. And again, like when you watch this game, you think 2 things. Browns defense is playing well. They're keeping them in this game. The Ravens are eventually going to break through that. And the Browns offense is not going to have a shot to keep up. Joe Flacco looked very old and slow today. There was a couple instances in which he tried to scramble, and it looked like he was running in quicksand with concrete shoes. It was that slow. He throws a pick on one of those scrambles. Nate Wiggins returns it. We know how fast Nate Wiggins is. Flacco tries to double back and catch him. He's getting outrun by Joel Bitonio to tackle Nate Wiggins and prevent him from scoring a touchdown on that interception.
Buddy.
So not to knock on Flacco, but it's rough watching this Browns offense, and this is exactly what I expect a team like the Ravens to do in a game like this.
Shook, I could not disagree more. Andrew Wiggins gets in the end zone, if not for Joe Flacco hitting 16.8 miles per hour.
No.
Come back. No, go watch the play, guys.
He threw the chip. He took the chip out of his jersey and he threw it.
16.8's not that fast. Nate Wiggins, by the way. Andrew Wiggins.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm falling
NBA
apart.
Star.
I called Cam Bynum Andrew Bynum earlier today. So it's both 2 of those things.
That's even worse.
As I'm falling apart. But Joe Flacco is hanging in there at his advanced age. I'm clearly experiencing cognitive decline, but Joe Flacco is making plays on defense, which is not what you want as a Browns fan. And Shook pointed it all out. The Browns defense could have been a problem.
It's going to be a good defense this year.
Derrick Henry could get nothing going on the ground, and there was pressure on Lamar from Myles Garrett on a key play where Mark Andrews scored a touchdown.
Oh.
John Harbaugh, for some reason, has the challenge flag in his hands, is looking at this on the replay board, puts it back in, took so long to make the decision, they barely get the snap off in time. Of course, Myles Garrett's looking at the clock, gets a sack out of it, but I mean, that's picking and choosing what to be frustrated about in a win that they won easily.
Yeah, if you had told me like Derrick Henry's held to 23 yards, I mean, Grant Delpit, justice for Grant, he was right. It was easy to tackle Derrick Henry, at least for this Browns team, apparently. Like that he gets outrushed by Jerome Ford, 6 for 31, and then Quinshad Judkins ends up playing a lot. And I know some of it's in garbage time, 10 for 61. Like you would have thought they were more in this game than they were. It's too bad because I think they have 2 great defensive players in Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward, and Myles Garrett after the game was pretty upset.
It's embarrassing, and we got to be better on defense. We got to be better as a team. They slowly chipped away. We did a solid job, holding it to 3 when we could, and then eventually, the dam broke, and then they just did whatever they wanted, and we have to continue to play a 60-minute game.
While we're listening to some sound, I loved his bluntness. I also loved Lamar Jackson just having a little fun after the game, a little subtle fun.
They looked extremely mature today. Got turnovers, kept points off the board, except that wild touchdown. But those guys just did their 9/11. They did it. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that because they might turn this into a meme or something. But they just did the whole thing. But they did what they're supposed to do today.
That was a reference to Marlon Humphrey last week saying the Ravens defense needs to work on our maturity. And then Kyle Hamilton kind of shot right back at Marlon Humphrey during the week. It was like a fun little back and forth of what they thought. And now it's all over because the Ravens won.
I just want to take this moment to salute Gregg Rosenthal for true profiles of courage in picking this game and the Ravens as his survivor pick this week.
I don't think you know how survivor pools are supposed to work.
That you
Let's go.
Knew from the jump would be so lopsided that you did not even try to pick even something you knew would be close, such as myself in week 1.
I don't think you understand what the survivor pools are supposed to be.
I don't think you understand.
You want to pick the one that you think's the easiest. In fact, I stupidly thought the Browns were going to cover this 11.5. I apologize.
I understand.
I apologize
nothing.
to the picks listeners out there. Yes, let's go. We all survived, except for Steve Weiss, who I had asked. He was not on the Wednesday show for a survivor pick via text, and he did send it to me that he had taken the Dolphins of all teams. And so I guess it's just down to me and you, Jourdan, trying to help out our listeners by giving them the best possible.
Sleep with one eye open.
Our
Survivor
listeners
picks.
need you guys to be eliminated because the best possible survivor is all of us working together.
Oh. The best survivor pick is
No, it's me.
the friends we made along the way. Was a joy to have Jourdan and Patrick along for the ride on this week 2 recap. Oh, it was a big one. We're going to say goodbye to you guys now, and then we're going to come back after the break with me and Nick Shook talking a little Sunday Night Football. Bang up job. You survived.
We made it.
We did it.
Shout out to Andrew Wiggins.
14 hours later. Woo.
Pretoriano in motion. We're going to hand it to Algier, and Tyler Algier scores standing. Minnesota might have let him score.
I think they did.
But Tyler Algier goes in with his first score of the year and his 11th career rushing touchdown.
Oh, they all can't be beauties. Sunday Night Football, for one of the first times I can remember, maybe had the worst game of the week. 22-6. Falcons beat the Vikings. There was not a touchdown until late in the game when you heard it. The Vikings let the Falcons score a touchdown. I'm not really sure why they did that at that point anyways. I guess their best chance was scoring a couple of very quick touchdowns. That was not going to happen the way that J.J. McCarthy looked on Sunday night. Shook, we said goodbye to Jourdan and Patrick, and for most of this night, we said goodbye to a passing game for both teams, but the running game for the Falcons was awesome. When you ask Raheem Morris what he wanted to see out of the 2025 Atlanta Falcons, I think he would want it to look exactly like tonight. Who needs to pass when you could run the ball for 218 yards while sacking J.J. McCarthy 6 times? This is Raheem ball.
This is old school control the game football right here. And they set the tone from the first 2 plays from scrimmage on the night. It was a 25-yard Bijan Robinson run to the left tackle. It was a 17-yard run, Bijan Robinson run to the right tackle. It was a 5-yard run. They didn't stop him until his 4th attempt. At that point, they were at the Minnesota 18. Yes, they didn't score a touchdown until, the Vikings let them score late in the game. But it seemed like they really controlled the game on both sides of the ball. And what's the theme? Usually, when you run the ball well. Now, Bijan's a bit of an outlier, but the theme usually is that you control the game in the trenches. And that almost always explains why a team can run well, except you add Bijan into it, and it's like another 50 yards because he makes guys miss. He's just one of the most elusive and explosive running backs in the NFL. It's a true treat to watch him run the ball. So those of you who think, oh, they didn't score a touchdown until the 4th quarter, why would I go back and watch this? Because you like a special running back. You like Bijan Robinson, and you like it when the Falcons' investment in 2 edge rushers pays off on the defensive side of the ball.
Well, Bijan's athleticism is just nuts. He had 5 plays in that game that were just incredible. One of those 3-yard runs, which set up the 4th down that they picked up late in the game, was just like absolutely awesome. I had a friend who texted me, and he's like a very casual football fan, and he was just like, watching Bijan Robinson is a total joy. And then the next text, of course, was, and that's the only thing that's joyous about this game. But it's funny you mentioned 50 yards more. They had 160 expected rushing yards in this game, which it would have been great on the attempts that they had. And then he added 58 essentially over expected with a little help.
I said that without knowing that.
That's
by the
amazing.
Way. That's just an estimate.
Yeah, with a little help from Tyler Algier. I've always thought, that's how you attack this Brian Flores defense. This wasn't the normal Brian Flores defense because of injuries. Andrew Van Ginkel was out. Jeff Okudah, who is starting for them, was out. Harrison Smith was out again with an illness. Brian Cashman has been out. And then more importantly than all that, actually, I think was an offensive injury. Without Christian Darrisaw the last 2 weeks, their left tackle, Justin Skule, has been a disaster. So you mentioned the investment in the pass protection. The pass rush for the Falcons. And Jalen Walker, his first career sack was beating Skule cleanly, and really all night Skule was struggling until he actually left very late into the concussion protocol, unfortunately. But they have not looked good protecting J.J. McCarthy, and J.J. McCarthy looked like he looked for the first 3 quarters last week. This time he just didn't have that turnaround. He has 2 interceptions in this game, only 158 yards, a fumble on a play where he was trying to do a fake, a fumble on a 4th and 1. I'm a little concerned how this season has started for them. I think that 4th quarter, which only really happened because their defense kept getting them the ball back over and over and over, overshadowed, one of the worst quarterback performances of the week in week 1 until that moment. And then he ends up as a player of the week. It's a long, long season. They're 1-1. No reason to panic, but it's been disappointing through 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think this game is a bit of an outlier when it comes to evaluating the Vikings over the course of a full season because of the guys they were missing defensively, and it contributed to them not being able to stop the run. But really, it comes down to Christian Darrisaw, like you highlighted, because, the left tackle, for as long as we've been a pass-first league, which we're going on, 2-3 decades this now, has been the most important blocker for a right-handed quarterback. It's the blind side. It's the guy that you have to trust, and it was the guy that they completely and repeatedly victimized on Sunday night in order to get after J.J. McCarthy. And the thing is, essentially a rookie quarterback here. Like, I know it's the second year, but essentially a rookie quarterback. How do you get him, comfortable and in a rhythm? You got to protect him first and foremost, and they just didn't do that well. The Falcons' the pass rush, the pressure rate was over 50% tonight. Like, you're never going to get going when that's the case. When you have a young quarterback who's facing a pressure rate of 53.3%, it's just not going to happen. He's not going to get into a rhythm, and it was kind of illustrated, I think, their last ditch attempt in the 4th quarter when he sails one deep looking for Jalen Naylor, who was open, but he missed him by about 4 or 5 yards. It was just a microcosm of how things just haven't gone right for them. But I also would not hit the panic button on them because they need guys to come back. I trust the culture and of Kevin O'Connell's experience in guiding this team. It's just going to take some time when you face teams that are able to capitalize on your weaknesses because of absences due to injury.
Agree, but I also think we can take lessons from the first few weeks and think about team profiles being maybe a little different than we expected. And just with them, I just think they're not going to be able to count on their passing game early in the season as much. They're going to need their defense to carry them, and they need to get healthier. And then the bigger takeaway for me, both weeks, I've been impressed by the Falcons secondary. I mentioned Xavier Watts coming into this game. He made a great interception. Another rookie, Billy Bowman, was all over the place, almost had an interception himself and made a couple big plays. They have Jesse Bates out there. I think J.J. McCarthy had about 4 or 5 plays tonight where he learned NFL athleticism is different than college athleticism on some of those sacks. One of them was when he tried to scramble and Jesse Bates got to him and got him out of bounds before the marker. And I was just like, yeah, no one in college is making the play like Jesse Bates just made it. And the interception was also crazy, but Bowman did get an interception in the end. That's right. He almost had 2 in the game. We won in the first half and he did get one. And that was like an incredibly athletic play. So I feel higher on the Falcons defense in general. I do think there's something there. Going into the season, you thought maybe they're going to be a bottom 5 to 10 defense. I think it's absolutely fair to have higher expectations if you're a Falcons fan now. We might have an above average defense. We have something to work with. And yes, we do have a badass running game. I shouldn't have sold Tyler Algier short, by the way, Shookie. 17 yards over expectation for him, too. So he's contributing 16 for 60 or 76 on the ground. Like he did great and a great win. They really outclassed the Vikings on Sunday night.
Yeah. And I think not a massive win over the scheme of a long season, but I think an important win for a Falcons team that's trying to find their footing. I mean, let's face it. The Kirk Cousins stuff last year, like they were a good team. They were a hot team, and then they fell apart down the stretch. They waited too long to pull Kirk Cousins for Michael Penix. It's important that they don't start in a deep hole this year with Michael Penix, the quarterback, because then the pressure falls on him. You feel the pressure on Raheem Morrison on the front office, and everybody gets tight. Getting a win like this gets you back to 1-1, and it's a win you could say, look, we just beat a team that almost took the top seed in the NFC last year. This is a really good team. They've been a good team over the last few years. This is an important win for us to prove to ourselves ourselves that we can go into a hostile environment on primetime television and win convincingly. That type of stuff can kind of propel you forward even early in the season.
Yep. I am impressed with Penix. I know the numbers weren't great, but between last week and this week, he just looks like a veteran. I think he's better from the neck up than you could reasonably expect for a second-year quarterback, but he has that experience. We'll talk about him more later. Since we taped the top of the show, you might have noticed when you listened to the Bengals that we talked about Burrow, but we weren't really sure, how long he might be out at that time. Since that happened, we've had more reporting on it, and it's obviously very concerning. Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero both reporting that Joe Burrow could miss around 3 months if surgery is required. Now, he will try to get a second opinion, but if he gets surgery, he'd be out about 3 months. He is feared to have suffered a grade 3 turf toe injury, according to Rap Sheet. And I don't know what you want to say about it, Shook, other than that it's a bummer, but 3 months is most of this season.
Yeah, I mean, 3 months from today is essentially just mid-December. Like that's about when the Bengals were like, oh God, we need to win out to try to save our playoff chances last year and the year before. So it's bad. Luckily they have a backup who has experience in Jake Browning, but it significantly lowers your ceiling. Not having Joe Burrow out there, like there's no reason to really have to explain that. And it's a bummer because over the last 3 years, he's been hurt basically every year, or almost every year. He was coming back from the knee injury. He had the wrist injury. He was finally fully healthy this year. He was feeling better than ever, throwing it better than ever. And 2 weeks into the season, you lose him. I mean, talk about a gut punch. A team that starts 2-0. They're riding high 2-0 for the first time in the Zach Taylor era, and they lose their quarterback. Tough, man. Tough to be a Bengals fan.
You think about the way his career has gone and the frustration he had, which he showed in that show Quarterback on Netflix, of the injuries that he's gone through, because of course he missed so much of his rookie year. And you mentioned the 2023 injury, and then sometimes coming into the season missing training camp. Even when he's played every game, he hasn't been fully healthy. And he came into the league as a 24-year-old. He is older than most quarterbacks. Not saying there's not a long road ahead for Joe Burrow, but he is turning 30 next year, and he is going to be getting increasingly frustrated with these injuries. Now, I don't want to go too deep until his second opinion confirms what the fear is, which would knock him out 3 months. We'll talk about it at length then. But the race for this season will be stay alive until Joe's back. And
which is a long time.
It is, but they are 2-0. And so that's a head start. And the schedule is pretty difficult overall, although in the middle, it's a little softer around their bye week. There's a Steelers, Jets, Bears bye week, Steelers, Patriots run of games, which I don't think they should be viewed as heavy underdogs. But any game with Jake Browning is going to be a challenge. And I think this will help teach us a little bit about the rest of the organization and whether they are good enough and whether they've built the defense up enough and the offensive line enough to compete even without Joe Burrow. Now, when Browning came in a couple of years ago, he actually was able to win some games for them and kept them in the mix. And this will just be a much longer uphill battle if he is indeed out 3 months, because I think you play the Ravens, you said mid-December, week 15. That's with 4 weeks left of the season. Can you get there at 7-6 or 6-7? You're at 2-0 now. That's only four more wins over a lot of games, 4 or 5 more wins. That is going to be the challenge. And frankly, it's one I hope they just aren't going to have to face. You never know. Maybe the second opinion will tell them you could try to play through it and play in a week or two. And that would be a positive outcome if he's able to possibly do that.
I mean, the first month of the projected timeline for him to miss, if the second opinion doesn't change anything, is a gauntlet. Minnesota, Denver, Detroit, Green Bay. I mean,
right.
The Flores defense. You've got the Denver defense. You've got, the Packers defense is at the end of that swing. Like that's an incredible amount of challenges for a guy who's a backup quarterback who just, by the nature of any backup quarterback, lowers your offensive ceiling. if they can survive, if they could split that, then I could believe in what you just presented. If things go haywire there, then it could get ugly.
Win one of those, you're to 3-3, and then that other part of the schedule, yes, you're just trying to possibly tread water. We're going to have a lot of shows and a lot of weeks now to discuss this Joe Burrow injury. It's really sad to have lost him for any amount of time this season, because the Bengals obviously one of the main characters in the NFL, and they did finally get out to a 2-0 start, even if it looked funky. Okay, Shook, we'll be back here in about 24 hours to recap a doubleheader. It's going to be a late one on the East Coast, Shook. That thing's going to be ending around 1 in the morning, so get some coffee, get ready. Bucks, Texans, Chargers, Raiders. We'll be back for that. This was a fun week, too, until the Burrow injury. Football is back.